Where's my notes? Where's my notes? These are notes from the other night. Did I go over everything? Yep. Old notes. Don't need those. Tonight's note. Okay. Well, everything's all discombobulated. Who was in my studio today? Everything's all messed up. Oh, there's that foam padding I was looking for. Oh, Kathy's here. Get with it. Hang on a minute, Kathy. I've been looking for this piece of foam padding for hours. Here it was tucked away in the studio. I'll put it over there for now. Getting tangled up in cables here. Somebody been messing in the studio today. My microphone's all goofed up and Linda's here. Yeah, you're not the only one that said it. And Rumbo's here. So I guess it's time to get started. Broadcasting live from Studio 1 of station WDWL TV. Corporate offices located on Grumpy Vulture Boulevard, and Grumpy Studio is on Grumpy Old Man Road. And with that out of the way, how is everybody doing today? Cold and rainy here in Cleveland. It never fails. I have plans to get things done, and it rains. Yeah, and I don't know what's, YouTube is just out there. I have noticed so many changes that it's disgusting. But what other platform am I going to use, Whoa, not even in triple digits. Holy shit. We got to mark that one on the calendar. Although, Ron, does it really rain? I think by the time the rain gets 3/4 of the way down, it turns to steam. Although my friend in Scottsdale said her cactuses are loving the heat. She's got some. she called it, I think, a barrel cactus in the middle of her front yard. And then she's got, God, I can't remember the name of the cactus that she's got in her backyard. They're the normal, the cactus with arms. But I think the one in her front yard, she says a barrel cactus. Barrel. No grass, just cactus. And it seems like everything is red crushed rock. She showed me pictures. She lives on a cul-de-sac. And every house, instead of having grass, their front yard is red crushed rock. It's a barrel. Okay. Like wine barrel. Okay. Sometime when I'm on the phone with her, she's a little hard to understand. I keep telling her, put your teeth in. I talk better with no teeth. When she's they have her teeth in, hard to understand. But I love the backyard, those cactus, with the arms. Man, them suckers got some quills on them. Jesus Christ, they're like 3 inches long. And it's amazing how the birds can land on that cactus and not land on a quill. She had some pictures of some birds sitting in the cactus. She keeps telling me, come on out for a visit. I said, I'll come out for a visit when the temperature's in the 80s. She said, good luck. Saguaro. It didn't sound like that coming. Although maybe she was trying to say it. I kept telling her, I can't understand you. So she has a barrel cactus in the front, and she has, I think there's 4 saguaro cactus in the back. They look cool. Matter of fact, the neighbor at the end of the street, well, I should say the beginning of the street, because she's at the end. The cactus he's got next to his house has got to be, oh Christ, 30 foot tall. It's amazing. I can't remember what she said he paid for that cactus. They had to come in with a machine that dug a big hole, and then they shipped the cactus in on a trailer, and it had to have a crane. He paid a fortune for it. He probably lies to all of his friends and go, when I moved in here, it was only this big. So, yeah, she was telling me that I guess there's a ban on going out in the desert now and digging these things up. Which, yeah, if everybody wanted a goddamn cactus, the desert wouldn't have any, I can understand that. I guess there's only certain areas that cactus can be harvested. Okay, when's the last time you saw somebody use a pack of matches to light a cigarette? I probably shouldn't be using these, although when I moved in here, way up, you couldn't even see it, on the top shelf in the closet in my bedroom, is a shoebox full of matchbooks. And from what I'm told, my landlord's parents would travel all over the United States and they would bring back matchbooks from where they stopped. This one's from Caesar's Palace. And it's amazing all the different. I'll bring the shoebox in here and I'll show you a lot of the matchbooks. But that's what his father collected, matchbooks. And I asked him, I said, do you want them? He goes, no, throw them away. I was like, oh, okay, they're matches. They light. Oh, Kathy, I've been there many times. You, you put a cigarette, in your mouth and you're like, whoa, holy shit, no flame. And you're running all over the place. And like with me, I have an electric stove. By the time that son of a bitch heats up, on a gas stove, you just lean over the flame. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to take and put matchbooks in every room. I'm going to put a bunch of them in the, my vehicles so that if sometime I don't have a lighter, I'll at least have a flame. Because neither one of my vehicles, the cigarette lighters, don't work. I replaced the fuses. It's not the fuse. I don't know. There's a thing in the past, a cigarette lighter. I have those oddball things in both of my vehicles, cigarette lighters and ashtrays. Which I don't have in the Passat. No cigarette lighter, no ashtray, power port, and storage area. So I'm going to take the power port out. I ordered a cigarette lighter assembly. I'm going to put a real lighter in it. And then I'm going to go to pull apart and see if I can find an ashtray that will fit in that little storage slot. Because they do have some old cars in the back of the lot. Oh! Good news. Remember I said yesterday I cannot find a master cylinder for the shitbox? Well, somebody out there who is not a subscriber, by the way, messaged me and gave me a phone number to call. And he said, I have a brand new master cylinder for your 97 Nissan pickup. And I was like, oh, yeah, right. So I called the number, and it's USA Import Auto Parts up in New Jersey. And I said, are you sure? I mean, the guy's an auto parts company. He said, give me your email. I'll send you a picture. So I give my email. A couple minutes later, I get a return with pictures. Holy shit, it's the master cylinder for my truck. Because it's an oddball. If you go on eBay and you look up 97 Nissan D21 pickup, the master cylinder that they show, which says for your vehicle, has 3 ports for 3 brake lines. Mine has 2 ports, one in the side, one in the front. This is the exact master cylinder. And he said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to sell it to you at my dead cost, and I will ship it to you for free. I almost fell out of the chair. So, I said, do you take PayPal? He said, yes, I do. I said, send me your PayPal and the price. $48. I immediately sent him $48. I got a notification at 4 o'clock. It's in the hands of UPS. I can't wait to finally have 100% brakes again. I could not believe it. He said, I was listening to your show last night. I went, somebody actually listens beside my 3 loyal followers? He said, yes, I have your master cylinder. I was like, oh my God. When he sent me the pictures, I was dumbfounded. Because nobody's got this goddamn thing. Yeah, it's about time, Kathy, isn't it? I hope the news on the RAV4 turns out this good. He won't be here until towards the end of the week. God, it'll pain. Oh, God, if I have to junk that thing. The tires on it don't have 5,000 miles. They probably don't have 3,000 miles. I don't drive that much. I probably don't drive 100 miles a month. They're like brand new. And the problem is I can't use them for anything. Because they're too wide for the Passat. because they're 16-inch. The Passat's 16-inch, but it takes them kind of skinny. These things would be rubbing the fender wells. Yeah, Kathy, brand new in the box. He told me, he said, not reman. This is brand new. And he took it out of the plastic wrapper, it was all in a plastic bag, laid it out, and he took pictures all the way around. And he said, this is for your truck. And when I looked at the pictures, I was like, holy shit, it's the one I need. Then I'm scrambling around here looking for my I had a brand new master cylinder bleeding kit. You think I can find it? I've got some time to look for it. I'd never used it. I bought it. I never used it. Because before you install it, you have to bench bleed it to make sure there's no air in it. I should have put it with my brake. I have a big bag of brake tools and brake parts. Yeah, it wasn't in there. I don't know where I put it. But I've got time to look for it. But man, I couldn't believe it. A listener that's not a subscriber. I said, you're going to subscribe? He goes, I'll think about it. I says to him, how did you come across me? He said, by accident. I clicked on the wrong thing. I was like, oh, okay. Actually, it wasn't yesterday's show. It was the day before. Because he said, when he realized he clicked on the wrong thing, it was just when we were going into football, meat pies, kangaroos, and Holden cars. And he said he played it for his employees. And everybody was like, what's a Holden car? Of course, most of the employees are young kids. Now, he knew about Holden cars because in his parts listing, when it would show, models that parts would fit for GM, it would be like, Impala, Nova, Holden. And he was like, Holden? Then he realized it was Australia. Yeah, he said he played it a couple of times for the employees. After the second time, they were like, okay, we've heard enough. Of course, most of the employees probably never heard the baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevrolet because that was back in the 70s. I don't know, there's certain things that were advertising items that they should have stuck with. Although people were probably tired of hearing baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevrolet. But then they had, what was it, the heartbeat of America. And then, they go to some of this stupid shit. Linda, my grandfather did the same thing. They weren't rolling toolboxes, and they're heavy as shit. And he he wrote on the top of each toolbox plumbing, electrical, you know. Matter of fact, he made one for screen repair. Now, how many people today repair their own screens? I do because I have a toolbox with all the tools in it. I have I have several first aid kits. As a matter of fact, I have a big one that I made up. It's in. I'll have to bring the box in one day. It's it looks like it has mesh all the way around it. Little itty bitty holes. And it came out of a sterilizing machine. They had a big sterilizer. And it's about the size of a briefcase, maybe about that thick. And I made a major, like a trauma first aid kit out of that one. Because I got surgical instruments in it and all kinds of stuff. They're not sterile anymore, but. Well, Kathy, you're old school like me. Today they throw them away. Go buy a new one. There's an art to repairing screens because you got to get them stiff. But if you get them too stiff, they bow the frame. You know, there's an art to putting that bead in and getting that screen just to the right stiffness. Everybody thinks, oh, lay the bead in. No. Because if you put it in too tight, you bow the goddamn frame. But yeah, I have it's like a fishing tackle box, but there's no tray in it, you know. It's just a plastic, and it's got every size bead. It's got the little, what do they call them, points for repairing a window. And it's got glazing tools in. It's a combo, screen and glass repair. But yeah, one day I went over to my grandfather's house, and in the garage were toolboxes, and he was putting the proper tools in each one. And he said, this is what you need for plumbing, this is what you need for electrical. And over the years, I've updated it with the newer tools, like the fancy tool that they have now for when you install a faucet, instead of trying to go up with that goofy sideways wrench. Matter of fact, I thought I had that tool in here. No, I don't. I know where it's at. Yeah, Linda, kids today don't think of this. You know, like my son, he looks at them toolboxes. You'd think he would make one up for himself. No. Although he's lucky he knows a pair of pliers from a screwdriver. It's so sad. Oh, man. But that's, that's the stuff that, from our generation, if you had a parent that had the knowledge to do all kinds of not only mechanical but home repair, they pass that, like with you, Linda, and Kathy, that it got passed down, and some had the forethought to make up toolkits. Especially with plumbing, you need certain oddball tools that you wouldn't normally have in a toolbox. And over the years, with some of the newer items that have come out for plumbing, I've added them to the toolbox. Like this goofy tool for changing a faucet to get up under the sink. Oh, I love that thing. Because there's nothing worse than trying to get those goddamn spin nuts because you don't have any room and you're trying to bend every which way. Yeah, plumbing's a bitch if you have to work under a sink. Ugh. Mainly with me, my arms get fucking tired right away from reaching up. Oh, you know what, Linda? I wish I would have saved. My grandfather made me a bolt, nut, and screw toolbox. And all of the containers were tobacco cans. Because my grandfather smoked Prince Albert. And he made labels on top of the can. Wood screws 1 inch, wood screws 2 inch, But they were all Prince Albert cans, and my dumb ass, updating, I go to Harbor Freight and I buy plastic sorting bins, and I poured everything in the bin and threw the damn cans away. And now I wish I had saved at least a couple of them Prince Albert cans. Because Prince Albert tobacco no longer comes in a can. Like in the old days, when you would make a phone call, Do you have Prince Albert in a can? Why, yes. Well, you better let him out. Oh. Then you'd hang up real quick. Or, is your refrigerator running? Why, yes. Well, you better go catch it. And then you'd hang up real quick. Those were the days before caller ID. Yeah, mine didn't fall apart. I dumbass threw them away. I wish I would have saved a couple at least. It would have been nice to have one sitting over here, a Prince Albert tobacco can. Hey, Mrs. M is here. How are ya? Oh, Kathy, you did the pranking too? Oh, yeah. Yeah, you'd go down the phone book and you'd get a neighbor up the street and you'd disguise your voice. And then hang up real quick. But there was no way they knew who it was unless they recognized your voice. That's right, Mrs. M. No need to explain. We're not the people like ask, where have you been? Yeah, Linda, I miss it because when I smoked a pipe for a while. Well, we just appreciate you popping in. Sorry to hear that, your energy level isn't where it should be, but we're glad to see you. When you smoke, like when I would smoke a pipe, the smell of the Prince Albert tobacco was not the same as when my grandfather would be sitting, on the other side of the living room smoking it. So, plus I, the three pipes that I had, I lost them and I never replaced them. Well, Miss M, we hope you get to feeling better. Sorry to hear you're not 100%. Hang in there. Don't overdo things. Oh, you're just going through a little bit of a spell. But get a lot of rest. Appreciate you popping in. We were talking about you the other day. I said, gee, I wonder what's going. She hadn't been around lately. Sorry to hear that you're not up to par, but we appreciate you popping in and saying hi. Take care of yourself. We want you around for a long time. Yeah, if you don't feel up to it, just every now and then just pop in to let us know how you're doing. But sorry, really, dear, sorry to hear that you're not feeling 100%. We've all been there. Believe me, we can sympathize with you, but take care of yourself, okay? Oh, oh, sorry to hear that, dear. Hope things get better for you. Take care of yourself. Come on. Oh, no wonder it won't light. The head disappeared. Oh, okay, go to another match. There we go. Yeah, when the old liver starts to act up, my uncle, he passed from cirrhosis. It wasn't fun. Of course, when the doctor told him you got to stop drinking, he didn't stop. He loved his scotch too much. Glenlivet, that's all he ever drank. Glenlivet scotch, single malt scotch. He used to pour a shooter in his coffee in the morning. That's how he started his day. Coffee, cream, sugar, scotch. And every time he had a cup of coffee, coffee, cream, sugar, scotch. He even snuck a flask into the hospital. It was in the inside coat pocket of his jacket. When nobody was looking, he tipped over to the closet, pour a little scotch in his coffee. I don't know how the nurses didn't detect it. Maybe they did and just ignored it, but he wasn't helping himself, believe me. But nobody could. He was a real obstinate Italian. Oh, you didn't argue with him. Not to mention he had a gravelly voice like the Godfather. His parents came here from Messina, Italy. I had to look it up on the map. I never heard of Messina, Italy. Or his grandparents, I should say, his grandparents. But you would think the way he walked around, the way he talked, he was in the mafia. He always had a fifth of scotch in his desk at work. Drank every day, every day. Then he wondered why he came down with cirrhosis. Gee, you're starting your day off with a shooter of scotch in your coffee? Duh. I remember he come home and he was telling my aunt, that goddamn doctor told me I got to stop drinking. She says, well, I've been telling you that for years. Are you going to finally quit? He said, fuck no. And he didn't. Matter of fact, my niece put a flask of Glenlivet scotch in his suit coat pocket, in his casket. And a pack of, what the hell did he smoke? Benson and Hedges. He smoked Benson and Hedges cigarettes. So in his front pocket in his suit, she tucked in a pack of Benson and Hedges, and in the inside pocket, she put a flask of Glenlivet scotch. Oh yeah, and a stick of pepperoni. She snuck that in when nobody was looking because he ate pepperoni every single day at lunch. Used to smoke B&H. Oh yeah, he had cartons of B&H in the cupboard in the kitchen. Of course, he owned a vending company. So, he'd order an extra case of Benson and Hedges for himself. Yeah, it was. What the hell was the name of that? M&A Tobacco and Candy, I think it was. Yeah, M&A Tobacco and Candy, or M&A Candy and Tobacco. And I'll tell you what, I smoked Parliaments. And when I'd run out of Parliaments, he'd hand me a pack of Benson and Hedges. I could not get hooked on those. I just didn't care for them. And then when Parliaments went, well, let's see, I smoked them. They went from 5 to 6, and then 6 to 7. And when they went to $7 a pack, I was like, that's it, no more. And I started smoking cheap generics until I found LD. LD. I like these LDs. For a while, talk about a goofy named cigarette. A friend of mine got me started on them. They were cheap generics. They were called This. 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 And one day I went in to get a couple packs of this, and the girl said, we don't have them. I said, oh, okay, I'll go down the street. She goes, they won't have them either. For some reason, they got banned. I don't know what it was with the cigarettes. They were made in, I think they were made in Thailand. And they couldn't import them anymore. I don't know what it was with them. So for a couple of weeks, I smoked 24/7s. Oh, those were like, I think they were floor sweepings rolled up in cigarette paper. And then Marianne said, have you ever tried LD? I said, no. And she gave me half a pack, and I got hooked on them. Not to mention they're cheap, like me. Cheap cigarettes. I'm trying to think. They're like $4.87 plus tax, or $4.78 plus tax. They're cheap. They're about the cheapest generic around here. And boy, the goofy generics nowadays. You know, here's something goofy, Linda. When I lived down the street, my neighbor Greg loves cigars. Okay? But he didn't like smoking a cigar like you smoke a cigar. So he would stick the cigar in his pipe and cut it off, and he would smoke the cigar in his pipe. I never saw anybody do that in my life. He never liked puffing on a cigar. So he unwrapped the cigar, stick in the pipe, and he had a razor blade, and he would cut the cigar off, and he'd smoke it, and then when he was done, empty the pipe out. When he was ready to smoke, he'd pick the cigar up, stick in the pipe. He was goofy. I said, "You're smoking a cigar in a pipe?" He says, "Yeah. What's wrong with that?" He couldn't pack because there's an art to packing your tobacco. And he loved a pipe. He had one of them big ass crook pipes like Sherlock Holmes. And he likes cigars. So he had the best of both worlds. He had his cigar and he smoked it in his pipe. Yeah, I tell young kids today, don't even think of it. And if you started, quit now. Because once you start, like right now, I can't quit. And Wednesday, when I go see my oncologist, I can hear it now. He'll open the door and yell, "You're still smoking." And I'll say, "Nice seeing you, Doc. Thanks for the warm greeting." I've tried, believe me, I've tried over the years. It's a rotten habit. I think nicotine is more addicting than goddamn drugs. I really do. But like of course he tells me, he says, "Oh, you gotta have the willpower." I've been smoking too goddamn long. Willpower don't do it. Because I'll tell you what, you get nicotine withdrawal like you get from any other drug. Oh shit, there's the microphone I was looking for. How'd that get over here? I was looking for this one. My hand mic it goes with my camera. How did it get over here? See? I don't know how it got in here. And it's a good mic too, an Audio Technica. I'll have to try it out one day. Plug it in and see how it works. Okay, we'll put that back over there. Now forget. Oh, and my Neurontin pills. Try swallowing one of these every morning. It's one of them stress relievers. It even says on it, Neurontin. Take one a day if you can get it down. Oh. Some of the weird shit over here. Jeez. Have you purchased any of these new LED light bulbs? Now, not the curly Qs. I bought a couple the other day. You know, my son's mother, that's how she quit. When she got pregnant, she'd light up a cigarette and run to the bathroom and puke her guts out. And she never smoked after that. Look at this goofy. The filaments are LED strips. These are the new LED light bulbs. And I'll tell you what, they're pretty neat. I can't remember what wattage this one is. Let's see. It's got to say on here somewhere. Dun, 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 dun. Equivalent to 60 watt. I figured I'd try a couple. I bought two just to see what they're like. But that's what we're coming to now. LED light bulbs. Yeah, I'll never forget the one morning I come out in the kitchen to get my coffee, and my son's mother was a teetotaler, and she was making her cup of tea, and she sat down at the kitchen table. I had my coffee, I sat down, and we were just getting ready to light up. And she lit a cigarette and she took like 2 drags and she ran into the bathroom and puked her guts out. And I told her, I said, "You're pregnant." No, it's just, every time she lit a cigarette, sure enough, she went to the doctor, and the doctor said, "Guess what?" And she quit smoking, and it's been 40 years. 40 years, and she's never lit a cigarette. Although she smoked Salem, which are what I call lung bleeders. The menthol, I don't know how somebody could hack them menthols, but that did it for her. Never touched another cigarette, ever. To this day. 40, going on 41 years. I give her a lot of credit. I should have quit when she quit. because up until the second trimester, I had to go smoke outside because the smell of cigarettes made her sick. Then she tells me, you can smoke the rest of my cigarettes if you want. Menthol? I don't think so. I wouldn't, if I was out, I would, oh, I'd be craving a cigarette. She'd go, well, smoke one of mine. Oh, nope, I can't hack menthol. No way. And my buddy's son smokes Newports. Those have got to be the strongest menthol cigarettes on earth. I don't. I tried one once. I was like, "Holy shit! How do you smoke these things?" Yeah, Linda, I've heard that, and I've never had a curly bulb catch fire, but I have heard that the goddamn things have started fires in many houses across the U.S. Especially, when they came out, everybody was like, oh, I want those cute curly bulbs. Matter of fact, I have one. It's my outdoor light. Well, it's in an enclosure, but it's my outdoor light over my side door. I don't think I have any curlies anymore except that one. I bought a shitload of the old incandescent bulbs when Marx had them a case for $1. I think I still have a shitload of them in the center closet. I had the energy wasters. Oh, yours are 40s? I just bought the 260s because I have a 60-watt in the corner lamp in my bedroom. And the bulb has been flickering lately, so I figure it's about ready to croak. So I put one in there, and to me, it seems like a cleaner, if that makes any sense, a cleaner light. I was quite surprised when I put it in there and I turned it on at night. I was like, wow, that's pretty neat. Yeah, I've read many stories over the years about the curly Q bulbs. The Energy Commission said, oh, these are power savers and blah, 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 and they played them up. And then I read a lot of articles that said, yeah, they catch fire. I got lucky, I guess, because I used them things for years. Of course, that's basically all you could buy was the curly Qs. And now they're making these LEDs. Oops. Yeah, let's break it, Grumpy. So I got one in my bedroom. I'm quite impressed with it. You know, in almost every room of my house, I have what we used to refer to as swag lamps. You know, the hanging lamp. Well, I've got one in almost every room. And looking on eBay today, I saw some interesting LED bulbs for the swag lamps. So I'm going to order a couple and then I'll show them to you when they get here. Matter of fact, when I was putting the hooks in the ceiling for the swag lamps, my son's like, "Oh God, you're going to put them things up?" I said, "Yes." I've got one in the corner in Studio 2. I got one in the corner of my bedroom. I got two in the living room. I have one over the kitchen table. And I've got one more. I don't know where I'm going to put it. But yeah, I'm a leftover hippie from the 60s with my hanging lamps. But you ought to wait until the bulbs get here. You're going to love it. And they weren't that expensive either. I was like, I'm going to order a couple of these for fun. And the neat thing is, they're dimmable. Because all of my swag lamps, I have dimmer switches, in the line cord. You got the chain and then the. So I put dimmer switches. Yeah, Linda, they say they last 5 times longer than an incandescent bulb because they don't get hot. I've noticed that they don't get hot they'll get warm. But I mean, an incandescent bulb, you could cook an egg on that goddamn thing. They get so hot. Man, I don't know how many times I reach to shut a lamp off and go up too high and burn my frickin' fingers on a light bulb. But they say they last 5 times longer, and I believe it. Yeah, I'm like you. I can't remember when I like the bulb out that my curlicue. I can't remember when I put that thing in. I think when I moved in, it was burned out. That's 5 years. 5 years. It still works. Watch tonight. I'll switch it on because it's my nightlight in my driveway. And I'll wake up and the archway over my frickin' doorway will be burnt to a crisp. Think I got a brick house. It'll be just that I've got one of those archways. It's probably like 3 feet, sticks out over the side door like an awning. Tomorrow I'll look out the door and it'll just be all burnt wood. Be my frickin' luck. But yeah, I put that curly Q out there 5 years ago. God, I can remember with some of the old incandescent bulbs, you're lucky to get 6 months out of them, they'd burn out. Go to flick it on and you'd see a flash. Poof! Burned out. Damn it. Or if you banged them too hard, you'd break the filament and go, oh, Jesus Christ, brand new bulb shot. Of course, that was the way you could tell if they were burned out. You shook them. And if they rattled, dead. I used to get mine out with an oven mitt. If it would burn out and you go to change the bulb, I'd get an oven mitt. Because otherwise you burn your frickin' hand. Yeah, back in the day you'd have maracas. You'd have a couple of burned out light bulbs. That's how you could tell if they were burned out. You shook them. Oh, tingle, tingle. Throw it away. Go get another bulb. Although when these burn out, they just go. They look normal. But because you really can't tell if they're burned out. Because they don't give you any. Although the curly Qs, if they burned out, there'd be a black mark. There'd be a black mark in the tubing. But I've never had one catch fire, thank God. Jesus Christ. I remember I had them in every single light fixture in the house at one time. And even after I read that they were starting fires, I didn't bother to change them. I was like, must have been a bad bulb. That's the nice thing about the LEDs, you know. You don't burn your hands with them. Which is another reason they last so long. Because basically, the old incandescents, it just basically cooked the filament until it finally let go. But it never failed. It would let go when you go to turn it on. You'd flick the switch and poof. Time to change a bulb. Although, LEDs are everywhere today. Although, I'll tell you what. You got LEDs in your headlights, you got LEDs in your turn lights, you got LEDs in your daytime running lights, you got LEDs in your tail lights. And when those suckers burn out, like your taillight, you got to replace the whole goddamn assembly. You know, it's not like back in the day you went and you bought a 75-cent bulb, you took the old out, you put, no. Now you have to change the whole taillight or the whole headlight. Friend of mine got cited a couple months back because 3/4 of his LED taillight was burned out. So he went to the parts store and he goes, no, you got to go to the dealer. The taillight was like $289 because you got to take the whole thing out. And like the new cars, you know, the daytime running light and the turn signal are the same assembly. Your daytime running light is white, and when you put your turn signal on, it turns, orange, and then goes back to white, and that's incorporated in the headlight assembly. I could almost imagine what it's going to cost on some of these newer cars. And it's not so much the first owner. It might be like the third owner that bought it at a, buy here, pay here lot because he couldn't afford credit. And then, headlight burns out and he doesn't have the money to replace it. But you got to replace it or you're going to get a ticket. That's why I'm glad the Passat has bulbs. I already looked. Everything has a bulb I can replace. I don't have to replace the whole assembly. God, I hope probate court gets that thing done with already. God. Taking forever. It never fails. When you're in dire need, everything drags along. If I had both the vehicles run, if I had the shitbox and the RAV4 100%, I'd be like, okay, we'll get it when we get it. Now I need the thing so I can fix the little problems with it so it's ready to go. No. Probate court is like Rip Van Winkle. Oh, Linda, I hear it's a bitch. I have heard more people say, screw it, I'm not fixing it. You got to take the whole goddamn thing apart. And then you break the fucking mirror glass when you go to snap it back in. It was a great idea until you had to fix it. Yeah, I've got a couple of friends that have them. and they're burned out, and they were like, hell with it. I'm not fixing it. I got turn signal in the front, I got turn signal in the back. Who cares if I got one on the side? They're a gimmick. It was a gimmicky idea. Although it was a good idea. Because somebody coming up alongside you, if you're going to change lanes, they see that you want to change lanes. Now, if they're decent, they'll speed up. If they're assholes, they'll just keep driving right next to you. Ha ha, you want to change lane? Ha ha! Then they wonder why there's road rage. Yeah, but what do they charge at the shop? Goddamn labor rates are ridiculous nowadays. I mean, it's sad the bill that I got for the shit box, and it didn't have 100% brakes. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to call the guy that fixed it and say, hey, I got a master cylinder. You want to do me a favor? Since you charged me a fortune and I only had 70% brake. For what you charged me, you want to put the master cylinder on so I can get 100%? Because basically, if you do it right, you don't have to bleed the brakes. I've done many master cylinders. If you do it right, you do not have to bleed the whole system. And there's a little trick to it. When you take the brake line off the master cylinder, it will drain down a little bit. What you do, and I learned this from an old school mechanic, you take a syringe and you fill it with brake fluid. And you squirt the brake fluid in the brake line until it is full. Then you quickly attach the brake line to the master cylinder. Because that's how you get air in the system. They don't think like, oh, wait a minute, it drained down a little bit. But you got to be quick. You shoot that brake fluid in until it fills up the brake line, and you quickly attach it. And you don't have to bleed all four wheels. As a matter of fact, the guy that is shipping me the master cylinder told me, he said, hey, I got a power booster here that's brand new. I was like, I don't need the power booster. Well, I've got one, and I'll sell it to you cheap. He's trying to get rid of all those old 30-year-old parts. Yeah, Kathy, I couldn't believe it. The one day I was watching my buddy's grandfather, he was changing a master cylinder and he had it all bolted up and he was getting ready to attach the lines. And I see him with a bottle of brake fluid with a syringe. And he's filling the syringe. I was like, what are you doing? He goes, watch. And it almost took the whole syringe. He stuck the needle in the brake line and it filled. And he put his finger over it and real quick. Attached it to the master cylinder. He goes, no air. That line doesn't have air in it now. It's got fluid. You don't have to bleed all four wheels. And when I was at the hospital, I conned the guy into giving me a box full of syringes. And there's syringes in all my toolboxes. And I remember that ever since. And God, he told me, God, that was back like in 1999. And I remembered it. Because he said, when you take the lines off, it'll seep down. Because basically what's keeping the fluid there is vacuum pressure. When you open that up, you break the vacuum and the fluid seeps down. So he says you fill the line and then real quick you attach it. No air. So I have my syringe ready. Hopefully I can find the bleeder kits because you have to bleed that master cylinder. You got to put it in the vise and you got to pump it. It takes like 30, 40 pumps. Because basically what you have is plastic fittings you screw in, and then you have plastic tubing that goes up into the reservoir. So you're constantly moving the fluid, getting the bubbles and the air out. Once it flows 100%, and you take all that off, and then you bolt it to the vehicle, and then you hook your brake lines up. No air. Instant brakes. So, when that master cylinder gets here, I have my syringe ready. Dr. Grumpy. As a matter of fact, I saw Scotty Kilmer do that. Boy, there's a guy with a wealth of mechanical knowledge. Holy shit. If I'm having a problem, I refer to him. Matter of fact, I just thought of it. I should email him about the RAV4. God, if anybody would have a good... I think I'll do that in the morning. Send Scotty, because he has a staff who answers the questions. I think that's what I'll do. I'll email Scotty, I'll give him all the work I did, all the symptoms, and see what he comes up with. And then whatever he comes up with, when my Toyota mechanic gets here, I'll say, did you think of this? No, let's try it. I still think it's something stupid. It's something we're missing. I fingers crossed that it didn't jump time If it did, I might be screwed. But I mean, when I turned it off that day, it didn't backfire. It just shut off normal. But the next morning, it started and ran for about a minute and quit. And never started again. Matter of fact, the guy told me he's going to make a list of the parts that he has in his warehouse for my shit box. He said, get them now before somebody else gets them. So, yeah, he's going to email me a list. Maybe he's got a set of brake drums. The mechanic that fixed it said the brake drums are, you can't turn them down anymore. They're max. Yeah, Linda, that's the normal way. That's until I learned that trick. I mean, matter of fact, that's the way we were taught in auto mechanics. Which is, pump it up. Okay. Hold your foot on the pedal. Wedge it on the floor. Floor. Okay, hold on. Close the bleeder. Pump it up. Okay. Open the bleeder. Pedals on the floor. Okay, hold on. Yeah, you gotta have two people. Somebody to be pumping that brake. Actually, three. Because you need somebody to make sure that it don't run out of brake fluid. Otherwise, you get air back in the system and you've got to start all over again. There you go. One opening the bleeders, one pumping the pedal, and one making sure there's fluid in the master cylinder. 3-person operation. Same way when you change a power steering pump. You gotta have one person keep pouring the fluid in and one person constantly turn the wheels all the way left, all the way to the right, all the way to the left, all the way to the right. Well, make sure your car's in the garage, Ron, otherwise it won't have any paint on it. That's got to be a bitch driving in a sandstorm. Boy, talk about clogging an air filter in a hurry. I remember back when Mount St. Helens blew up, how many emergency vehicles got destroyed because of the fine lava dust particles that actually went through the air filters into the engines and then ended up in the crankcase. Nothing like having sand in your motor. Yeah, they said fleets of police cars got ruined, ambulances destroyed, fire trucks by all that fine lava dust. And boy, when that volcano blew, holy shit. They're still finding burnt vehicles and all kinds of remnants of when that volcano let go. I can't remember that old timer that lived on, like right at the base of the volcano, and they kept telling him, you gotta go, you gotta get out of here, you gotta go, and he's like, no, I've lived here for like 50 years, I'm not leaving. And the old volcano got him. They never did find him, or his house, or his car, or anything. Yeah, Ron, stay in the apartment. Last thing you need to be out in a sandstorm. Get your camel in the garage. I think what I'm going to attempt to do on this other screen, I'm going to see if I can get two YouTubes going. And that way the chat will be in the right corner of the monitor, and I don't have to keep looking that way to read the chat. I'm going to try that tomorrow. Because I got this monitor right sitting here doing nothing. That way I can just kind of glance a little bit and the chat will be right there. Instead of having to constantly look away from the camera, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Because looking this way, you miss my big, beautiful brown eyes. Oh. Yeah, I used to have beautiful brown hair to go with it. Of course, then I got this goofy spot right here. And you know what that's from? I used to have a full beard, but it was close. You know, it wasn't like this. And it was nice and brown down to here, and it was getting a little gray in it. So I got some generic just for men. And I was going to a wedding, and I wanted it to look nice. So I get the old generic just for men out and following the directions, combing it in, then wait and rinse it out. It looked beautiful. Oh man, did it look nice and brown. A couple days later, I'm ringing the cash register at work. And my goddamn chin right here is wet. Gooey. I take a napkin, you know. I was like, gee, I didn't spill anything. A little bit later on, it's all gooey again. Ew, don't look good. So I happen to be patting it dry, and one of the doctors came up. And he said, what's wrong with your chin? I said, he said, let me see that napkin. He went, oh. He said, I'll be right back with a prescription. I was like, what? He said, I'll tell you when I get back. He gives me this prescription for some special ointment. And he said, you've got a chemical burn on your chin. But it didn't burn, it just this one little spot here, it burned in the center. And he told me, he says, you gotta wash your beard real good, dry it. He actually told me to shave it off. I was like, ugh. He said, put this ointment on 3-4 times a day. And it took about a week to heal. And ever since then, first of all, it's real sensitive. If I shave with a razor, oh man, do I get a razor burn. But that one spot is the only thing that's dark brown. The rest of this is all white. And I can't do nothing with it. But yeah, I got a goddamn chemical burn from that shit. What's that, Linda? A second screen? I'll have to email G2 and ask him, do I just bring up YouTube? Because, boy, that would be great. I wouldn't have to keep looking that way. I could move that screen a little bit on the mount because it's on a big articulating arm. I could actually bring that monitor up closer, and then I could look straight ahead rather than back and forth. I should be looking at the camera when I'm talking, you know. Last of the coffee. Matter of fact, digging through stuff today, I found another arm for mounting monitors. And this one is for 2 monitors, one below the other. I don't know what I'd use it for, but I forgot I even bought it. Well, cool. I'll try that tomorrow. Because, like I say, with it being on an articulating arm, I could bring it over and closer and keep it just out of camera. And that way I could look straight ahead and read the chat because the chat's on the right side. Plus, it would be a little bigger. The font would be a little larger because I have this little itty bitty chat screen with Prism. That would work great if I could do. I'm going to experiment tomorrow. Because that way I could stay looking at the camera. And you guys could constantly see my beautiful face. Tomorrow is the meeting with my pain management doctor. And boy, do I have a lot to tell him. 2:30. Although he's going to be pissed that I didn't get an MRI, but they're scheduled so far out. I'll tell him, look, you know where they're scheduled, look. I couldn't get like the end of September. But boy, him and I are going to have a long talk. And he better have a game plan formulated. Because this is getting to be bullshit. He said to me, he said, now, when we meet next month, don't soft soap or hold anything back. I said, oh, you don't have to worry about that. I'm going to start the conversation with, you fucked up my life, Doc. Now, how are you going to unfuck it? I'll say, is that forward enough? I'm not soft soaping anything. I'm not holding back. Although I think I'll do that after he signs the application for the renewal of my handicap parking sticker. It's going to be a very interesting meeting tomorrow. And I'm going to tell him, whatever oral medication you give me, let's not start with like 5 milligrams and then next month 10 milligrams. No, I'm not being a goddamn guinea pig in pain. Give me the 50 or the 100 right off the bat. I hate when they do that. Well, we'll start with 5 milligrams. If that don't work, next month we'll go to 10. No. Give me the 25s or the 50s right now. I don't know what all he said was, well, we can supplement with some oral medication. Okay, Doc. Whatever oral medication you're going to supplement with, it better fucking work. Because he screwed up my summer. He really did. You know, I look forward. We have a short enough summer already. I mean, here we are coming up on Labor Day. The weather's going to start to turn shitty in Cleveland because we only have two seasons, summer and winter. You know, he couldn't have done this shit when it was winter, when I'm housebound. No, he has to do it right at the beginning of summer. You know, all winter long, I plan out what I'm going to do. This. I make a big list because I only have a short window to get shit done. And then he pulls this shit right at the beginning of summer. So he best have his game plan formulated when I get there tomorrow. How do you like my doorbell? The problem is there's an eyeball in there. And it moves back and forth, but you can't see it because it's so bright. I think it's cool. There's like 5 different things it says. Every time you ring it, it's something different. I don't even know, I couldn't understand what it said that time. Enter at your own risk. I like that. I just wish you could see the moving eyeball. It's kind of cool. Temu, $3. The one day I was like searching Halloween things. I don't know why I don't decorate for Halloween. But I saw this doorbell. I was like, oh, that looks cool. Yeah, $3. Yeah, it takes 2 AA batteries. I should have ordered 2. I could have put one out by the side door. The only problem is it doesn't ring loud enough. Although the cordless doorbell that I got, I really like it. It's got 12 different tones. Right now it's set for Westminster. And it's loud enough that if somebody rings it outside, you can hear it. So you know the doorbell's ringing. And no matter where I'm at in the house, I can hear it. Matter of fact, I got that doorbell off of Temu. I think it was $12, but well worth the money. The doorbell thing, the button takes a battery, and at night it lights up. Matter of fact, it's cool because there's a blue bell that lights up to show you the doorbell's there. And then the other unit plugs into the wall. And you can hear it, which I like. It's amazing the shit you can find on Temu. But when I saw that, I had to get it. But I should have bought two because they're all out now. You can't, they don't have any more. Unless maybe they got in stock. But all I did one day was search Halloween items. And pages of shit came up. Most of it was costumes. But then that doorbell, I was like, oh, I like that. Especially with the green eye. You like it, Kathy? I'll have to search Timu tomorrow and see if they got any more in stock. Well, Linda, once my kid reached that age where he didn't go trick or treating anymore, it saved me from having to buy a shitload of candy for a bunch of unappreciative assholes anyway. Why should I reward the kids in this neighborhood? They're all a bunch of rotten assholes anyway. And, you run the risk if somebody falls off your porch because their costume was too long, you're getting sued. So, matter of fact, my porch light is on 24/7, except Halloween night. I shut it off, and the whole front of the house is dark. And kids know, well, he ain't giving no candy out. Back when my son was young, I would decorate. Matter of fact, I had a big pot, and it was on a electric what the hell is that goddamn thing called? It's like an electric burner from your stove. A little single heating unit to keep the water boiling. And then you drop dry ice in the boiling water and it would look like on TV. The smoke would go all over the porch and down the steps. But once my son was bored with Halloween, I didn't decorate nothing. No, I didn't give out candy. Yeah, I had that single electric, and I put a big pot, kept the water boiling, and I would get like a 50-pound block of dry ice and chip off a chunk every now and then and drop it in, boil over. The smoke would go all over the porch, down the steps. It was kind of funny because the little kids would scare them like, oh, I ain't walking up there. And then I had it looked like a real arm. And I got an IV bag from the hospital and I put dark colored water, red water in it. And I'd hang it upside down and it looked like blood dripping off the hand. I used to go really goofy. But then once he was like done with Halloween, I was like, okay, saves me all that hassle. And now, like I say, I turn the light off on the front porch, and they know that grumpy old man ain't giving no candy out. Not to mention, candy's too expensive to give away. Not like back in the day when the neighbor up the street used to give out them big Hershey bars. You got a glass of cider and a donut, and then she'd always go, get something for your bag. And they had boxes of big candy bars. They were neat people. Matter of fact, the people that are living in the house now, I saw them out the other day, and I told them about how the Geralds used to be back when I was a little kid. And I said that enclosed back porch you have back there, she would set up a table with a big, huge, she made it look like a cauldron, filled it with cider, and then they'd buy, Christ, I don't know how many dozen donuts, fry cakes. I love them to this day. But you'd get a cup of cider and a donut, and then on the other side of the porch would be a long table with all different big candy bars. Hershey bars, Baby Ruth, Mars bars. And I told them, I said, they did that because all year long, they never had a problem with the kids. Nobody cut across their grass. Nobody threw litter on their lawn. So they rewarded the kids. And every kid in the neighborhood knew, if you screw with Gerald's, they ain't doing it next time. And the people that were there were like, you gotta be kidding. I said, no. Every Halloween. And I told them they were retired college professors. And I started telling them about the house, and they went, gee, it's not like that anymore. Because I said he had an English pub built in his basement. It looked just like, and he had the beer taps like they have where, they pump the beer out of the keg. And I said he had all that stuff. It looked like an old English pub. And they were like, it's just a basement now. But there have been several owners of the house over the years. But they were the greatest people on earth. They really were. Matter of fact, to this day, I can come down the street and name every neighbor that lived in those houses growing up. Mainly because I used to deliver the Cleveland Press, and everybody on the street was a customer. And I can come down the street and go, well, that's Stevens' house, and that's Saunders' house, and that was McShane, and go right down and remember every single neighbor that lived there. Because my old high school math teacher lives in Tischler's old house. But to this day, and I was, let's see, I delivered for 2 years, from age 10 to age 12. And I can walk down that street and name every single person who was there in the 50s and 60s when I was growing up. And of course, everybody knew the Geralds because their house looks like an old castle. It's one of the oldest houses in the neighborhood, and it's huge. God. It's amazing. They only had one child in this big, huge house. And I can almost remember where each one of them worked. Because Stevens owned a drafting company and Saunders worked for General Motors. No, Saunders worked for Ford. McShane worked for General Motors. As a matter of fact, old man McShane ran a punch press. And that was before the day of all the guards. And now they have devices. Well, punch presses are all modernized now, but they used to have these guards that you put on your wrist and it would pull your hand back. Well, one day Mr. McShane didn't get his hand out of the way, and it took off all the fingers. See, it took off these three. He lost these three fingers in that punch press. And they kind of swiveled his pinky so that he had a claw. But it chopped him right off. Of course, there were no guards on any equipment back in the day. Put it in there, push the lever, Unfortunately, he didn't have his hand out of the way when he put his foot on the lever. Chop. And he wouldn't go out on disability. He told them, I can go back and run that machine. Don't you worry about it. And he went back to work after it was healed up. I'm surprised General Motors let him. But yeah, he used to run a punch press. And let's see, who lived next door to McShane? O'Leary. Oh, how could I ever forget him? He was a deputy sheriff. Nobody ever messed with his house either. Every now and then he'd come home with one of the patrol cars and park it in the driveway so everybody knew. And then, God, what was his name? Thompson. Thompson lived next door to O'Leary. Thompson was a traveling salesman. He was single. And you hardly knew when he was home or not because he had timers on the lights. So the lights would come on at night and could shut off by themselves. So you never knew if he was there or not. Mainly so nobody would break into his house. Well, he had come home from one of his road trips. And he always put the car in the garage, and the garage didn't have any windows in it. So you never knew if his car was in there or not. And his brother hadn't heard from him. He used to call his brother on a regular basis. So his brother called the police and said, "Hey, I haven't heard from my brother. Go over to his house and check on him." And, of course, he wouldn't answer the door. Police are knocking. So they kicked the door in, and as soon as they kicked the door in, they knew. And they found him in bed, very decomposed. And then, who lived next door to Simich? Simich worked for Republic Steel. And then next door to Simich was Schmelzer. He worked for a bakery. Matter of fact, Kathy, I don't know if you remember Laub's, Laubs, Laub's Baking. He worked for Laub's Bakery. He was a head baker. And next door to them was Gector. And then next door to Gector was Grumpy. And then across the street was Fisher's and Golden's and McWilliams and Kessa and Smith. And next to Smith was Schuyler and then Tischler and Wilson. There you got the whole street. We had a lot of people with S's. It was amazing how many S's. People's last names started with S. And Carl Gector was the one who drove the cement mixer. And it was a twin stick. And he taught me, when I was age 16, how to drive a twin stick transmission. He took me out in the cement mixer one day. Said, "You want to learn how to drive a semi?" "Yeah." "Well, this one's a little harder. It's got 2 shifters, not 1. And he taught me how to drive a twin stick, which now they do with an air shifter, no more 2 sticks. I had an interesting childhood growing up, I'll tell you. I enjoyed driving that cement mixer. Oh, man. Nowadays, somebody get fired for that. Back then, yeah, don't wreck the truck. That was it. Don't wreck the truck. That was interesting learning how to drive that twin stick, though. Man, what a pain in the ass, though. Holy shit. You had to be coordinated to do that. Because you were shifting 2 transmissions every time you shifted. Well, not every single time. It had a 5-speed main and a 4-speed secondary. So you'd put the second transmission in first and the first transmission in first, and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you had to reach through the steering wheel, take the second transmission and shift it into second and bring the first transmission back to first. They called it a 5 and a 4. It was a 20-speed transmission. And it never fails. I'd get like in the 16th gear and you'd have to come to a stop. But it was cool. My neighbors treated me better than my parents. Because a lot of times, Schmelzer would bring home cream sticks from the bakery. I loved the cream sticks. Here, I brought these home for you. Thank you. I'd have to get home and hide them. Because otherwise it was like, you gotta share those. They'd take them away from me. Take them home and hide them. That way I had them all to myself. I know I was a pig. I keep forgetting I have to tell the car story. I have several people that want to hear about how my grandparents bought a car. So I have to do... Oh, we got people... Oh, it's that time, huh? Why didn't somebody say something? I guess it's music time. I hadn't realized it was that late. Sorry, people. I got carried away. We know where, right here. Fox News, WDWL TV. I changed the plate today. All right, everybody, have a wonderful rest of your evening. Thanks for putting up with me this long. And we will meet again right here, tomorrow night. And with that, take care, everybody. See ya. Okay, take 2. See ya.